Hey guys, Brian Castro from Better Chess Training here, and here we are again with another tactics training session. And I'm going to be going on Chess Tempo again. And if there is a chess server that you particularly like using, then let me know, and maybe we'll check it out for a future video. What I'm going to try to do today to make this as valuable to you as possible is I'm going to try to solve the problems fairly quickly. The Blitz tactics set takes into account the time you take, but then afterwards I'm going to make sure I explain the moves concisely, but so that you can understand the themes behind it. Because when it comes to tactics, it's important to understand the themes so that you can your mind can associate them when you actually see them on the board, and hopefully you can apply this training to your games. Okay, let's get started, and hopefully we'll do okay today. Okay, I'm going to try to do about 10 problems, and as always, pause the video once you see in the chess tempo videos. Once you see this move here, pause the video and try to solve the problem yourself before seeing my solution. Okay. What do we have here? Well, we see that this rook has just taken this pawn here. Material is even, and typically we want to see if there's a way to win material. And let's see here. Looking here, we have this pin on this knight. Wondering if we could do some type of exchanges over here and then capture this at the end. So queen takes f7 check, queen takes f7, rook takes f7. The only issue I have here is that if, well, actually that could, would rook takes e1 check is kind of an intermediate move there. But what if I did something like, let's see, queen takes f7 check, queen takes f7, and then, well, then the queen would just move here. This one is a little trickier. We have this pin. Is there any way to take advantage of that? Is the question. Rook takes f7, but then this in-between move here can always be disruptive. What if we start here? Rook takes e4, then queen takes e4. Not sure if we have anything here. Oh, okay. Rook takes e4, queen takes e4, and then rook to e3, because this knight is pinned, and if the queen moves out of the way, the back rank is weak. So I think that's the answer. Okay, and that is the answer. Okay, so let me show you that real quick. The idea here is that the back rank is weak. So after rook takes e4 and then queen takes e4, rook to e3 leads through x-rays this e8 square, and the queen cannot retreat anywhere to protect it. And because this knight is pinned, it can't move out of the way, and this king here has no cover, so we're going to lose material. So that's what happened there. Okay, so these usually are taken from real games, but I guess the computer determines that the best move is just to take here, and you can see here that we are up a queen for a rook. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, and again, wait for the opponent to move in these chess tempo problems. And here we have queen to d4, protecting this bishop. So we see here this bishop is pinned. Of course, his king is very open here. So I guess the question is, how are we going to take advantage of these things? Okay, we look at potential. We also have some danger here. This battery coming down this line as well. So let's take a look here and see what we can potentially do here. Often good to, I'm just trying to see if there's any way to take advantage of this pin. Always look at something like rook takes g4 check. Then I think just queen takes g4. And is there anything else for me to do? Not sure about that. Let's see. Other options would be something like queen to f3 popped into my mind. But then after something like queen to d8 check, rook takes d8, rook takes d8 check, king takes d8, then can we just take this? Well, actually, we'd be ahead of material, wouldn't we? The bishop can capture the queen here. So what we're doing here would be something like queen to f3, threatening mate here. And so we determined these exchanges here on d8 would favor black. What if... And then the threat would be then rook takes g5 check, and if we take back with the queen, then we would just capture this rook. Oh no, it wouldn't. They'd be protecting the rook. So maybe that's not the answer. At first I was thinking bishop to f3, but then this check here would be pretty annoying. So let's see here. There are no safe checks. Rook takes g4 check. I don't think does anything. So I think queen takes g4 is safe enough. Are there any mating threats here? Queen to f3, and then if what about rook to d2, queen to h1 check, forcing to the f file? Do we have anything after, say, I guess, would we have anything after rook to f8 check? Oh, well, queen to f3, rook to d2. Could we just get away with something like queen to g3 check, and after moves take this one with check, and then win this piece here? I think that's the answer. Let's try it. Okay, queen to f3, and then, like we mentioned before, these exchanges here will favor black, so we're ahead of piece. Okay, so let's look at that real quick, because I know I talked about it a lot. So the idea here is, because of this pin, we have this invasion into the kingside space, and what I was looking at was this rook to d2, but then something like queen to g3 check. Of course, if we block, then this is checkmate. But if the king moves, let's say over here, then we have something like this. Queen takes, and then after the king moves, for example, let's say the king moved here, then we can just take this bishop, for example. And actually, I just noticed, what if he blocks here? Well, then we can just take here as well. And it's not checkmate, but we're going to win a lot of material. Okay? So the main line, and maybe this is what happened in the game, queen to d8 check, rook takes d8, and now we do have to get the order right, because bishop takes f3. If rook takes f3, then material, white is ahead in material, because he just takes back with the bishop. So we have to take the bishop first, and then after rook takes d8 check, we're ahead by a bishop for a pawn. So that should be sufficient to win. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, again, wait for the move, and after white moves, okay, pause the video if you want to solve this. And let's see here. Well, we've got this. Our queen is being attacked. A lot of pressure here on the black king. I'm wondering, can we just take? Can we just take this bishop right away? Is there any checkmating threats? And then queen takes, rook takes, and then bishop takes. And if we take back with the bishop with check, then, well, actually, we take on f6, queen takes check, okay, or let's say he takes with the queen first. We could just take the queen. Oh, bishop takes check first to take back this bishop, and then we take the queen, and then we're ahead quite a bit of material. I think that's the answer. I'm going to try it. Okay, so he's going to move here, and then so the threat is mate. Okay, so I didn't see this continuation. So, but can I just get my queen out of the way? So we've won a bishop here. We're actually ahead of rook. I think I could just move my queen here and defend this pawn. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that is the solution, guys. Okay, so let's just go back. So the recognition here is not to blink at this threat at the queen and be able to calculate. Here's what I saw after g takes f6. Even if he takes this queen first, so that's what you have to consider first, then you just take back. Because you have this check, the king has to move. If he blocks with the queen, you're just going to take it, and then you take here. What I should have also seen was just this threat of checkmate, but of course we could just move our queen to defend here. Okay, so kind of looking at the in-between moves, and because you have this check, you have time to take this bishop on f6. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, hope you guys are doing well so far. Hope you guys are solving these with me. Okay, actually, this is a very interesting problem. A very similar type of formation with this queen here, but let's see what the issue is. Let's look at material. Material is about even. We're ahead, I think, pawn. We both have two rooks, we both have a bishop, and we both have a queen. So how are we going to finish this off, I guess? This bishop is hanging, but white has a threat of taking. If we take this bishop, a rook takes f6, which would then threaten this king, and I'm going to guess there is a mating net that can be formed there. So what can we do here? Can we... There's no checks we can play. Just looking at the different characters. If we take the bishop, rook takes f6. Is there any way to deal with that in terms of defending h6? Or is there any type of counterattack that we can employ? I don't necessarily see one. Let's see here. Well, if we just took the rook, then the queen takes, and then we're ahead. Well, we've traded a bishop and a rook for a queen. I don't think that's quite convincing enough. this queen is hanging, but there's no real way to attack it. The back rank is not weak enough. Some thoughts would be some type of deflection by taking this rook. And then a double, rook to b1 check, bishop takes b1, rook takes b1, but it's not mate because the king can go to h2. Let's see here. Well, let's see. Rook takes b or a2. Rook takes f6. Can I don't think it's enough. If I took the rook on f6 and then doubled rooks on the seventh rank here, then he could just bring his rook back to defend. So I don't think it's quite enough. Something with the geometry of this puzzle I'm trying to reconcile here, but how are these all connected? This bishop is just hanging here. Sometimes when there's a hanging piece, it's kind of the end of the solution. It's sort of the end of the problem. Oh, you know what? Do we have some type of... Trying to see if there's some type of pin here, like rook to d7, and then if rook takes f6, we take here first with check, and then after the king moves, we should just go ahead and take this rook, and after the queen takes, we take this bishop, and then we're just ahead. We have two rooks for the queen plus an extra bishop. So that's one option. Rook to d7. And then if the rook takes on d7, then we can take back with the bishop, for example. Then, do we have anything after that? I don't see really a follow-up. That's the only other issue. This bishop is hanging. Does it have a safe place to go? I think it does. So I'm not quite sure. That idea could be something, but I'm not quite sure what the follow-up would be. So rook d7 was one of my ideas as well. Rook to d7, rook takes d7, then bishop takes d7. I wonder if it's easier. So rook takes a2, rook takes f6. I mean, is it actually checkmate? Maybe it's not checkmate. So what if I just doubled up here on the seventh rank? Let's just double check this. Then we'd have queen takes h6 check, king to g8, and what about queen to g5 check? See, at the very least, I think white can get perpetual here. So rook to d7 looks decent because because of that sequence we talked about. Hmm. There's really nothing that can attack this queen over here. I feel like rook takes a2 has to be either that. It's either one of these two moves, but the problem is just after rook takes a2, rook takes f6. What is my response? Um, well, I don't want to take too long here. I might give up in a little bit, but just to keep the video going here. Rook to d8 looks promising, or rook to d7. I'm going to try this and just see, and we'll have to look at it later. Okay, that is incorrect. And, okay, this is interesting, and I did not see this, so we are going to learn something here today. The answer is rook takes a2, and then after rook takes f6, a quiet move here, queen to f8, just defending this pawn, and we're ahead of bishop now. So there's no checkmate here. So I guess what about after this? I'm wondering. I mean, is there a defense after this too? I'm not sure. What about? Maybe I'm just overthinking it here. Queen, or well, we could have something like this: rook to b1 check, king to b2, and then something like rook takes g2 check, king takes g2, and then we have this, which would stifle the something like that. Maybe would stifle the attack, but the problem ended after queen to f8. I think the point being to defend here. Okay, let's go to the next problem. Let's try to get a few more in here. I know I spent a lot of time on that problem, but sometimes it just takes a while. Okay, rook to c2 being played here, and let's take a look here. We've got potential. Here, what do we have? Do we have anything on d8 here? We've got the queen and the king on the same file. Is there any way to get some type of fork in? That would be one of my first thoughts. And I'm wondering if the... Let's see here. Well, this has a lot of potential. Something like this. Queen to d3. Okay, and he has to take there. And then I'm going to play this, and then this. Okay, so this was a quick one, but I'll show you how this worked. Queen to d3 is covering the h7 square. So now the back rank is weak. So if the queen left the back rank to get out of this potential fork, then there would be a mate. For example, if we went something like this, let's just say this, then we have, well, actually not necessarily, do we? Oh, I'm sorry, it would be taken, of course. Let's, if we did something like, oh, let's go back. We did something like this, then this would lead to checkmate. Okay, so the back rank is weak. So of course, black covered here. Black just played this move, and I'm not sure this must have been played in the game. Then rook to d8 check forks, and we win the queen for a rook. Okay, so let's keep moving. Okay, that was an easy one. So after that long one, we got an easy one. Okay, queen to h3, protecting here. So let's see here. Got a few things. We have this rook is hanging, so let's see if there might be some forking ideas. This king is incredibly vulnerable, so there might be something there. And of course, we have the back rank potential on the back rank. So let's see what we've got here. Let's take a look real quick at something like rook to f1 check. Rook takes f1, rook takes f1 check. And then do I have any forking potential here with, say, queen to c1 check? I don't think so necessarily right away. If he goes to the second rank here, queen to c1 check, let's say king to f2, then something like, I don't think we have anything there right away, but we'll keep that in the back of our mind there. What about taking right away on g2? Rook takes g2, queen takes g2. Is there any type of deflection or some way to keep, and I don't see anything right away. My other thought was rook to f3, rook f to f3, attacking the queen. But the queen can take, and then the rook can take, so that would win material. But the queen, what if the queen just dropped back to say h2 in order to protect this pawn? Do I have anything from there? Well, I might. What if something like rook takes... So, my idea, rook to f3, and then if queen to h2, then rook to f1 check, rook takes f1, and then queen to e3 check. And then if he blocks, then I can take it. If he moves, then that will lead to checkmate. Or, yeah, checkmate here with rook takes f1 check. Now, if he moves his queen to h1, I think I can do something very similar with rook to f1 check, rook takes f1, queen to e3 check, and then king to h2. Do I have the follow-up? I don't know if I have the follow-up there. Then queen takes e5 check. Yeah, I don't know if I have the follow-up from there. Oh! You know what I could do is, if he goes to h1, then it'd be rook to f1 check, rook takes f1, queen to e3 check, and then, or actually I don't even have to do queen to e3 check, just rook takes f1 check, and then queen to c1 check, the king will move, and then I win the queen over there. So actually that has a lot of potential. Let's go ahead and play it. Okay, so he's going to check here with the king, and I just have to scooch out of the way, I believe. Okay, and he takes here, and then I take back. So I won here. So let me just show you some of those variations real quick. So the idea here, taking advantage of this pin on this pawn here, as well as this attack on the king. If he goes back to h2, then I have rook to f1 check, and after rook takes f1, I have queen to e3 check. And then after he moves there, this will lead to checkmate. Okay? And then if he moves his queen to h1, so again, just to keep in contact with this pawn to protect it, then I have rook to f1 check. Rook takes f1, rook takes f1 check, king takes f1, and then rook c1 check, and after the king moves, then we take this queen. Okay? So that was a good problem, and let's see how much time we have here. I've got time for maybe a couple more. Okay? So let's see what we can do here. Okay. So we have here rook takes g4. Again, we have some pressure on this king, so this is another type of problem there. And we also have this knight here, so we have some knight forks potentially, but they don't look like they work quite yet. I'm just trying to see. This bishop kind of dominating this knight here. So let's see if there's anything we can take advantage of. Let's see here. Just looking at knight to g3 check, and I think just bishop takes here. Bishop takes g3, stops it. Same thing here. Rook. Well, okay. Knight to f2 check. You can't go bishop takes because then this is checkmate. If he takes with the queen, then I can take the rook and I win the exchange. So I think that's the answer. Okay? And then I just win the exchange. Okay, that was a fairly straightforward one. So let's go back real quick. Knight takes f2 check, of course, forking the king and the rook. Cannot take back with the bishop because of checkmate. So taking back with the queen leaves the rook on pre. Okay? Okay. Okay, and rook takes d6 is played. So let's see what we have here. Let's look at the material real quick. Okay, we're actually down a piece. So what do we have here? If we take back here, he takes back with the bishop. Do we have any other types of tactics that would play into things here? I'm seeing this here, and I'm wondering if there's some type of fork. That's what I'm looking at here, guys. Right now, this a6 bishop is protected by the knight. So I'm trying to see if I could take this. Bishop takes back. Rook takes. Queen takes. Is there any type of... oh, well, you know, that at that point, well, any type of skewer here that would allow me to play this... Take this guy here. So, I think pawn takes first is probably the first thing. So let's go ahead and play that. Okay, bishop takes. And then, is there a way to add a defender here with tempo? So that's the other question. If that's even the solution. I was looking at a skewer over here, but this pawn can block that. Oh, well, I can threaten mate here and just win this bishop right here. So the idea would be queen to d4, and he is blocking the mate by there, and then I just take this guy. Okay, actually that's one of our tactical patterns, double threat here, okay? So he takes d6, bishop takes d6, and then queen to d4, threatening mate, as well as adding an extra attacker here. So that's a double attack and winning material. Okay. So we've got 8 problems. Let's see if we can do one or two more here. Okay. Let's see. With this knight here, there's always fork ideas, and that is, I think, the solution here. Rook to c6. With the fork here, if the queen takes, then we have this threat here. So rook to c6, and you can see here now that queen just moves out of the way. So we are going to, let me just double check to make sure there's nothing else that I'm missing. We're just going to win this bishop. Okay, pretty straightforward. This is just a fork and then winning some material. And as I was mentioning, if the queen were to take, then we have this fork, knight to e7 check, and after the king moves, we take the queen. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can finish off here with a perfect, good solution here. Okay. So here we have even material, and we've got interesting move here. This bishop is blocking this rook. So how are we going to win material here? Okay, he's also threatening here, but this bishop is protecting. The king is pretty open here, but this bishop is covering the d8 square, so there's no checks per se. If I take this right away, there's no skewers or forks or anything like that. This pawn is pretty advanced, so if we can move it up the board a little bit, that might be interesting. Well, what if I just started moving my king in here? If I move my king, this bishop, like I said, I'm protecting here with the bishop here, moving my king in, and let's say he tries to check me, then I could just play king to a6 to attack it, and my advanced pawn would be pretty effective there. This one's kind of a little tricky. King to b5 is my idea, because it kind of blocks the king out. If the king tries to move, then can we just advance this pawn? And if the king were even to try to threaten this rook, the rook can just move out of the way. I just feel like this is a little more of an obtuse problem. It's not really as direct of a problem. I might be missing something here, but I'm thinking it's just king to b5, blocking this king out, and eventually going after this rook, for example. And if the rook ever, checks me and then I attack and gets out of here, I just win this guy right here. And then if he say, moves to, if he doesn't move his rook, and he moves his king instead, I advance this pawn. So then this rook is starting to get trapped. And then I can maybe attack with this bishop. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so that looks like the solution. Bishop takes a5, and I think I just take the bishop. So that was an interesting problem. Let me just show you what I was thinking. King to b5, and then if, for example, rook to b7 check, king to a7, for example, and then if this rook moves, it could move down here, for example, and then we can just take the bishop, and of course if he moves away, then we can take this guy, and let's say he tries to do some type of pin. Well, I can just have some time to move my king back over to protect it and advance this pawn. Okay, so that was an interesting problem there, and I think the themes are based on the kind of an overprotection concept as well as this advanced pawn, because any type of exchanges here would leave me with being able to promote this pawn. So good session. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments. So all of these variations, I didn't do any checking with the chess engine, so if I missed something also, let me know which problem it is or what time point it is in the video, and we can have a discussion about that as well. But I hope you guys did well in your training. I hope you were able to solve a few of the problems and learn a few more tactical patterns and practice your calculating. Okay? Talk to you soon. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please press the like button. If you are new to this channel, Better Chess Training is about helping you to become the hero of your chess story. We do that by helping you to increase your chess knowledge, improve your mental processes and thought processes, as well as to maximize or optimize your performance at the chessboard. So if that's something you're interested in, I'd be happy and honored to be a part of your chess journey. So consider subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon.